Hi everyone. So today's quick lesson is going to be working backwards from taking a graph and being able to write its equation. Okay, so up to this point, you guys have been able to take a graph, find the amplitude and the period and any reflections, tell if the graph has been able to have a vertical or horizontal shrink or stretch, the changes in the in the range and whatnot, and the domain. But now we're actually going to go backwards and we're going to take a look at a graph or written characteristics and determine what the actual equation of the graph is. Okay, so if we look at a quick recall, right here is the sine graph has an amplitude of 4, a period of 3 pi, reflection in the x-axis. So it's a sine curve, so we're going to have y equals, okay, reflection in the x-axis is going to tell us that I need a negative out front. My amplitude goes directly in front of the sine, so -4 sine. And then remember that we have to put b in front of the x value, or this could be a theta, or it could be whatever technically letter you want it to be, as long as that's representing the angle. So what I want you to pay attention to is that they give us the period, they don't give us the b value. So if we remember that period is the formula 2 pi over b, then all we have to do is substitute out the period for 3 pi. So we have to take the p out, put 3 pi in, and that's equal to 2 pi over b. And if you guys remember that whenever the variable's in the bottom and the denominator, that we could do a little flipperoo here, and b is equal to 2 pi over 3 pi, and that tells us that b is equal to 2/3. Okay, so then 2/3 is what's actually going to go in this spot right here. Okay, so I'm going to give you an opportunity, or actually I'm going to do the next one with you, and then I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to fill it in on Edpuzzle. So cosine amplitude is 3 and the period is 4. So we know that that's going to be a range of 3 to -3, and it's a vertical stretch. And then we know the period is 4, which is less than 2 pi, so it's a horizontal shrink, and there's no reflection. So we're very simply going to write y equals, the amplitude is 3, since it's cosine, we're going to write cosine, and then it's bx. So once again, we need to figure out what the b value is. So I'm going to take 2 pi over b is equal to 4, and then we're going to just flip-flop these, which some of you probably have already figured out the shortcut so far, that all I have to do is 2 pi over the period, and that is equivalent to pi over 2. And we would just plug that right back in for the b value. Okay, and there you have it. That is how you guys would go about figuring out the equation if you were just given the words for drawing. If you were given the words of the equation and you just have to write out the equation. So here's the next one that I would like you guys to try. It's a you try problem, and go ahead and fill it out on your Edpuzzle and see if you can get this correctly. Okay, so if you got the Edpuzzle correct, you should have gotten answer D, okay, which would give you the answer of y equals, would have given you the answer of y equals -2/3 cosine and then 1/2 x, okay, which was letter D. Okay, all right, so that was just kind of a quick recall. I think we've taken a look at that before in Desmos. So let's take a look at when we're actually given a graph. Okay, so this kind of shouldn't be too hard because we've actually taken a look at this at Desmos already. And you can always double check your graph on this, although I would tell you that you should not be using Desmos when you're taking a quiz or a test on this, but you can always use it to check your work. Okay, so basically the first thing that I need you guys to pay attention to is that you really do not want to look at anything to the left of the y-axis. So I'm actually, if I had a piece of paper, I would actually cover this side of the graph, okay? And I would only look from the starting value of right here at the y-axis, okay? So first of all, what I would take a look at is figure out what type of graph it is, okay? So because I start at the origin, I know that this is a sine curve. Okay, so that's the first thing. Then I want to decide if there's any reflection. So remember, sine does start with a hill and then it has a valley. So this does not have any reflections. So I'm going to put NA because it does not have any reflections. Then I need to figure out my amplitude. So normally it's 1 to -1, but this actually is all the way up here at 4. Goes down to -4, which is my range. Okay, so my amplitude is 4. And if I was to do my range, that would be from -4 to 4. So this is a vertical stretch. Okay, so my amplitude's 4. Now, for my period, this is where a lot of my students have a hard time identifying. Okay, so I'm hoping that we'll be able to situate this. Okay, but we know that it starts here at 0, and now we need to figure out, well, where does my sine graph end? Okay, so we know that sine has to have a hill, and it has to have a valley, and then it hits the x-axis. So it's very important that you know what the sine curve looks like, the parent function. Okay, so it does end right here at 8 pi. Okay, that is the end of the period. Okay, and then all of this right here is starting the next period. Okay, so I do not want to include that in my period. Okay, in fact, this is actually starting a whole nother period. So the actual part of my graph that is my sine curve starts here at 0, 0. Here's my hill to 4 pi, and then it continues on the rest of it to 8 pi. Okay, and it is symmetric there. So the period is 8 pi. And you should be able to see my nice little sine curve right there. So to find B, again, we know it's 2 pi over B is equal to 8 pi for the period. We do the little switcheroo thing here. So 2 pi over 8 pi is equal to, these cross out, is equal to 1/4. So that is my B value. Okay, and as I wrote in my formulas at the top here, okay, they are the ones that go inside of the parentheses. So this equation is going to be y equals, there's no reflection, so I'm going to have my amplitude, which is 4, sine, and then I'm going to plug in my B value, which is 1/4 x. Okay, and then you're all done. You don't always have to have a pi when you're in the B value. It could be a regular number or it could have a pi in it. Okay, so the next one is a you try for you to try on Edpuzzle. So go ahead and give that a try and let's see what you guys come up with. Okay, and we're back. So hopefully you guys got the correct answer. It should have been letter A, and your final equation should have been y equals -2 sine parentheses, and this should have been pi over 2x. Okay, so basically, again, it starts here at the origin. Do not worry about this side, because if you do, it's going to kind of get you confused. It starts at the origin. Then this one has a valley first, a valley, and then a hill. Okay, so my period ends here at 4, and it has a reflection. Okay, since it has a valley and then a hill. So that makes this a sine curve with an amplitude of 2. And then if I go backwards, 2 pi over 4 gave me that pi over 2 for the B value. Okay? All right. I'm moving right along here. So how about another graph? Okay, this one is actually going to be a cosine graph. Okay, so the cosine graph is going to obviously not start at the origin. Okay, so that's how you're going to know that this is not a sine graph, because if I take a look at the origin right here, it's not there. So that means that this is a cosine graph. Okay, so that's how you're going to know right away. So it's not at the origin. All right, so therefore it's cosine. All right. Then the next thing that you guys need to be aware of is, does this have a reflection? Well, the normal cosine graph starts up here and it comes down and it's one big huge valley from 0 to 2 pi. Okay, so as you can tell, this is starting at -3. So yes, this does have a reflection. Okay, and then the next thing you would want to do is take a look at our amplitude. Okay, so obviously our amplitude, normally it starts at 1. This is at 3. This has a vertical stretch. Okay. And now we need to pay attention to our period. So since we're all the way down here, remember that for the cosine graph, you want to look for the next y value that it hits. And that would be the end of the period, which is right here. Okay, so because it's upside down, it's one huge hill. Okay, again, we're not looking over here to the left side of the y-axis. Okay, so we start here at 0, -3, the y-intercept, and then we need to look for the next time it hits that same exact value for the y-min, since it's upside down, and that happens at 4 pi. So that is our period. Okay, and then again, to find b, you're going to 2 pi over b, which is equal to 4 pi. And then we'll do that old little switcheroo here. And we're going to get 2 pi over 4 pi, and the pi's disappear, giving us a b value of 1/2. Okay, so our equation is going to be y equals, amplitude is 3, but don't forget we have a reflection, so I have to put a negative in front of it, cosine, and then b is 1/2, so the 1/2 is going to go in the front, and then an x is going to go next to it. Okay, the only other thing that I would ever have you do is possibly maybe like a bonus or something is if it had a vertical shift up or down. Okay, and that would be shown on the outside, like a plus or a minus on the outside of the equation. Okay, and that would show you that the entire graph moves up or down. Okay, all right, and then I'm going to go over another example, and then I'm going to have you guys do a couple more you try. Okay, so write a function, again, given the criteria in the graph. Okay, so once again, it does not start at the origin. Okay, so therefore this is the cosine curve. Does it have a reflection? No, it does not, because it does not start down here in the negatives. It starts in the positives. It does have an amplitude stretch because normally it starts here at 1. It starts up here at 5. So it's vertically stretched. Again, do not pay attention to the left-hand side of the y-axis. Okay, in fact, just scribble it out or cover it over with your hand or a piece of paper. Okay, that amplitude is going to tell us that the range changed from -5 to 5. So that means that when I'm going across to find my period, I should have a y max at 5 and then find out where my next y max is at 5, which happens to occur right here at 8, which is my period. Okay, so you can see this big, huge valley from here all the way to 8. Okay, so to find b, it's 2 pi over b equals 8. Again, the 8 switcheroo. So b is equal to 2 pi over 8, which is equal to pi over 4. Okay, and write our equation. So y equals, amplitude is 5, cosine, b is pi over 4, and don't forget to put your x value in. Okay, and there you have it. That is writing an equation for my graph. Okay, so then you have 2 more U-try problems from Edpuzzle that I've also wrote into your notes here. So that way you have it on paper as well, but you're going to type these into Edpuzzle. So I'll give you a second to try these, and then I'll let you know what the answers are. So go ahead and try this one, and I'll let you know what the next one is. Okay, so hopefully you guys got the right answer for this one. You should have gotten letter B. Okay, so letter B is going to be y equals 3 cosine 5/13 x. So y equals 3 cosine 5/13 x. Okay, so once again, this starts up here at 3, so this is a cosine curve. No reflections. The amplitude is 3. The period, okay, start at the top. It's a y max, so go all the way to the next y max, which happens at 26 pi over 15. Or, I'm sorry, 26 pi over 5. Okay, now remember, when you go to find b, it's going to be 2 pi divided by 26 pi over 5, which technically means 2 pi times 5 over 26 pi. Okay, so then these pi's cancel out, and then I also did at the 2, okay, and the 26 is 13, so that gave me 5 over 13 for my b value. Okay, all right, and last but not least, I need you to just finish this last U-try problem, number 9, see what you get, and then we are done our Edpuzzle. Okay, and for the last one, I hope you got letter C, which should be, the letter C, should be y equals -1. So you can either write the -1 or just write negative sine. And our b value should be 3/2x. Okay, so real fast, again, it starts at the origin, so therefore we know this is the sine curve. Now sine, again, usually starts with a hill and then a valley, so because it has a valley to its midpoint and then a hill to the end, we know that there's a reflection, yes. The amplitude is just 1, okay, even though it's upside down, it's still amplitude of 1. Its period goes from 0 and then all the way to 4π/3. Okay, and then once again, we're just going backwards. So 2 pi divided by 4π/3, which ends up being times 3/4 pi. And that gives us 3/2, which goes right into here. Okay, and there you have it. That is all you have to do for writing your equations given a graph. So again, so very important that you know your parent sine and cosine functions and understand how to find amplitude, period, understand reflections, understand vertical shrink and stretches as well as horizontal shrink and stretches, and how to find the period given an equation to solve backwards. Okay, and that is it. Great job.